Hello and welcome back to Drucker Forum TV and to our live studio here at the Vienna Hofburg Palace in the middle of this year's Global Peter Drucker Forum. My name is Christine Brogiato and now I have the honor to bring in yet another amazing studio guest here in our Drucker Forum TV studio. Now coming up we have Marine Hadengue. She's Executive Director at the Higher Education for Good Foundation, and she will join us in our virtual studio here today. Hello Marine, welcome.
Hello Christine, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Where are you tuning in from today?
I'm fine, thank you. Right now I'm in France, but about to leave for the COP28 in Dubai.
Wonderful. Okay, so a tight schedule for today for sure. Thank you for joining us in our virtual studio here. Marine, at your foundation, you initiated just over a year ago, I believe it was, this initiative called Youth Talks. And here at the Drucker Forum, you know it very well. We are always talking about how can we also involve the younger generation more, and what are some approaches we can take there. And I believe with Youth Talks, you actually started a very specific and new approach, if I can put it like this. Could you maybe give us a better idea about what Youth Talks does in this particular way and what your mission with this also is?
Thank you very much, Christine, for these questions. I'm the executive director of the Higher Education for Good Foundation based in Geneva. And the mission of that foundation is to help educational institutions to transform and adapt their programs for a more sustainable future. And in that context, the first project of the foundation is Youth Talks. And you're right, Christine, it's very important these days to make sure that young people have a voice at the table. I'm not sure if you know that number, but 76% of tomorrow's young leaders believe the older generation ignores their vital interests. And 50% of these senior leaders agree with that statement, right?
Wow.
So it's very important for us now to work with the young people. So Youth Talks is all about this. The mission of Youth Talks is to bring the voices of the world's youth to the attention of organizations and decision makers, and to influence their actions to better meet the needs and aspirations of these young people. Now, what is Youth Talks? We don't like to call it a survey. We like to call it a consultation, because with Youth Talks, what we do is that we ask open-ended questions to the young people around the world, allowing them to express themselves freely without imposing a specific mindset, right? Because when you ask closed-ended questions, for example, people have to fit into one of the four boxes that you give them, right? You give like four predefined answers, and they have to fit in one of them. With the open-ended questions, people, and young people in that case, can say and answer whatever they want. And Christine, the reason why we could not do that a couple of years ago is because we didn't have the technology to do so, right? You can collect all these answers, different answers from the people, but then if you cannot analyze them, I mean, it's worthless. So now, thanks to artificial intelligence and natural language processing, we are able to analyze all this data.
This is amazing, Marine. If I may just jump in here for a moment, right. We'll continue with your mission in just a moment, but this is really interesting because at the Global Peter Drucker Forum this year, we are also talking a lot about leadership in an age of discontinuity, right? And AI, of course, is also a big topic here at the conference this year. You mentioned you are using AI to analyze these open-ended questions, because how else would you analyze such a big amount of data? I could imagine this is a big pile of work. Let's put it like this. So could you give us a bit of an insight here already? How was the journey for you going into AI? You mentioned that technologies have not been here just a couple of years ago. Everything is developing so fast. How do you navigate that?
Thank you, Kristen. So you're right, because Youth Talks is now the largest youth consultation like ever. We collected 1 million ideas and answers from more than 45,000 young people coming from 212 countries and territories. So as you just said, how do we analyze all this? So we used AI, more specifically natural language processing. But along the way, somewhere between October and November last year, we all discovered OpenAI and ChatGPT. So you have to know that we also use this new technology to analyze the answers. So basically, how does that work? So you collect all these answers from young people, and you use these algorithms to make emerge clusters, and then you build also meta clusters being these group of similar ideas expressed by the young people. So let me give you a concrete example. For example, you asked that question, what are your concerns for the future? And then you are able to create all these different boxes, regrouping the different topics that young people discussed to answer that question. And then you put all these different boxes into an even bigger box. And just so you know, Christine, for each of the questions that we asked to the young people, we collected between 100 and 170 different topics discussed by the young people. What does that mean? It means that when you ask young people a question and you give them like four choices of answers, you do not have the real picture there, because in fact young people discuss, as I just mentioned, more than 100 different topics. So it's way more than four topics, right? So that's very interesting in that sense.
This is amazing, and I believe it's an amazing approach to go in with an open-ended approach, giving them the opportunity to voice their real opinions that you are trying to collect. You mentioned that your approach is to build it into clusters, so you can actually analyze it and deal with it in the coming steps. So what are some of those clusters, some of those key findings you've had so far? What are the main concerns the youth is voicing?
So, of course, the study is so rich, and I invite people to go on the Youth Talks website. If you look for Youth Talks using, for example, Google, you will find it easily. But okay, some key findings maybe here really quickly. First of all, so the first key finding, of course, is about the diversity of the voices. We have many youths around the world, just one youth, and many opinions. Second one, and it's kind of not a surprise at that point, but there is this very strong dichotomy between the West and the rest. When we ask questions, we see that young people in the West have a very different mindset than the other. For example, when we ask them, what are your main concerns for yourself in the future? In the West, they will talk about the financial situation, which is kind of weird, in contrast to the rest of the world, where they will talk about achieving their dreams, that kind of thing. Another very interesting finding is about peace. When we ask young people what they wish for the world tomorrow, we could have expected environmental protection, right? All about the environment. But the main wish all around the world from young people is peace. Of course, after that, they will talk about the environment, but the first wish is about peace. They want peace again. And because of the sake of time, I will end with maybe two last key findings. And one of them I think is striking. When we ask young people what they need to learn at school, and I want to highlight that at school, to reach out to that world, I mean, the future that they wish for, you could expect them to talk about technology, mathematics, management, whatever. All of them, except in China, mention the values, like human values. They want to relearn basic human values so we can all have this common foundation to communicate and go together toward the same direction. It's like they want to find this peace and harmony again by learning how to interact all together. And I'm not a sociologist, Christine, so I'm not sure if it's related to the lack of religion, to the pandemic, to the social media. But it seems that these young people are screaming to us, hey, can you please help us to act together, to communicate and be together again? A very interesting finding, and it's a key finding, by the way, for the universities and professors at school. And a last one maybe is the tensions within society, because one of the questions that we asked was, what are you willing to give up to build that future, and what are you not willing to give up? and we can see very strong tensions within societies. You have young people willing to give up, for example, material consumption in Europe, let's say. 40% of them are willing to give up material consumptions, but about 30% of them are not willing to give up material consumptions. So it's very difficult then to go all in the same directions when you observe that kind of
Yes.
gaps
For
in people.
sure. So we're observing a complex landscape, and you mentioned the big numbers at the beginning, the amount of young people raising their concerns, feeling somewhat neglected by other generations by not being involved. So this as a final question to you, Marine, for everybody who is listening here, business leaders, community leaders, etc. What can they do to also involve young people better, the young generation better? And also, what are your concrete next steps coming up at Youth Talks?
Thank you very much. We have more than 40 partners for this initiative, and we invite more and more organizations to collaborate with us. I mean, at that point, Youth Talks needs to be a continuous initiative, I think. And we need to make sure to work all together to make sure that these voices are heard and that we take into consideration these voices in our decisions on a day-to-day basis, also as business leaders, right? So Youth Talks is not only for educational institutions, it's for very different stakeholders in the society, including companies and business leaders. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you want to know more at that point. Maybe you have a last question, Christine, or should I conclude at that point?
Yes, maybe just a brief remark if you want to add anything in terms of impact or your mission, any final brief remark, you're welcome.
Maybe I would like to talk a bit about resilience because it's kind of the topic of the Peter Drucker Forum these days. In terms of resilience and also as kind of a business leader myself, everything is going so fast these days, Christine, especially when you think about technology. So what I explained today and what I showed you with Youth Talks is quite innovative right now, but it will not be innovative next year. So we need to make sure to use and use it right. I mean, use the tools to make sure that we make the most of it in terms of the voices of the young people, of
Yes.
course. But then it's also all about management and management 2.0, how you manage your team inside the organization, but also how you manage the young people in terms of participating to the survey. By the way, we have more than 2,000 ambassadors at that point. I think it's very important to lead with humility these days and make sense of what we do. So again, for the employees inside the business, but also people engage with what you are doing.
Exactly. Leading with humility, I think, is also a very good takeaway for what you have been telling us here today. Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing at Youth Talks. I think we all got some good takeaways on what we can all do better to involve different generations. Marine, I could talk to you forever. Thank you for coming on Drucker Forum TV, even for a short window. And I hope we see you again with more. Good luck with everything at Youth Talks and good luck at the COP. And thank you for coming on to Drucker Forum TV. This was Drucker Forum TV Live. We'll be back with more.